Hello and welcome to episode 98 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma. I am your host of this knitting podcast and I am coming to you from Ottawa, Canada, where I live with my family and our cat Yoda, who you saw in the intro. And well, now that it's summer, she is enjoying the outdoors a lot and usually lounging somewhere on our back deck. So hello and welcome. This is episode 98. I thought we might have reached 100 by now to coincide with our 7th Podiversary, but that did not happen. That's okay. We will reach 100 2 episodes from now. But June 2017 was the first time that an episode of Little Big Knits aired. And so we'll talk a little bit about that later and celebrate that a little bit later. So today, of course, I'll be talking about knitting, but I did want to mention a couple of things before we start that. We had a couple of knit-alongs that ended. One ended December 31st. That was the Scrappy Stashy Mal. And then we had one that ended the end of March, and that was the LBK Nordic Cal. And I only just recently got myself all organized for the prizes. In fact, that's not quite true. I had, I think in February, finally gotten my act together to get the prizes together for the Scrappy Stashy Mal. I took pictures, I announced the winners in the Ravelry group and contacted those who had won on Instagram. And then I promptly misplaced the bag that the prizes were in. And about a month later, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to send out those prizes. And for the life of me, I could not find the prizes. And I concluded after searching high and low, emptying out my closet, because sometimes I'll put things in there when I just need them out of the way for a moment. I just looked absolutely everywhere. I concluded that the bag had ended up in the back of my car with all of the other bags of charity stuff. So the lovely prizes that I had went to charity. The prize givers, who were my friend Roxana, who'd made lovely bags, and Melissa of Alley Cat Yarns, really stepped up to the plate and so very kindly offered me, more prizes. So I was able to put those prizes together and finally send them. And I recently drew the prizes for the LBK Nordic Cal, and those are also announced in the Ravelry group, and I contacted the Instagram winners as well. So those they're in packages and they're almost ready to go, and I will not be making that weird mistake again. That just felt like a very serious brain blip. But I was in a real sort of decluttering mode at that point, and I guess I saw the bag and I thought, okay, I'll just put it in the car for today because I had people coming over, and then I forgot. So that's that, but we won't be making that mistake again. We don't have a knit along going on right now. I have to say that life has been really busy. I haven't had the wherewithal to think about that. So we're taking a wee break from knit-alongs, but people do really enjoy them. So I've had a couple of ideas, but if you have an idea for a knit-along that you would like to do, and it always includes crochet, and it could include other crafts depending on what it is, let me know. I'd love to hear it. I also got a lot of comments last episode about rug washing, washing my Finnish ryjus. I showed you some video footage of them last time. It was one of my challenges for June. We're mid-June and I haven't gotten to it yet. Here's the thing. I finally opened the box with the inflatable pool, and then I realized, oh my gosh, we've got to inflate this thing and we don't have a pump. So I've been slowly blowing into it, but probably today I'll stop somewhere and get a pump and finish blowing it up. And then we just haven't had very good weather. The first part of June was really, really rainy. I thought about doing it last weekend, but it just rained all weekend. We are now going to have some very hot weather. So I am hoping to get at least one of them done in this next week. So, but I got a lot of comments about being careful with that, and thank you for those. I had somebody commented about putting them on snow, and I had thought about doing that in the winter, but I honestly really just wanted to give it a good soak. Somebody else commented about running, the colors running, so I'm going to be careful with that and put them in, well, put one in and see what happens. I don't know why, but I feel like the colors will be quite fast, but I could be wrong. And somebody said, be careful because they'll be really heavy when you take them out. And that was a really good pointer. So we'll see how that ends up happening. I don't know that I'll have the wherewithal to video the whole thing, but I will tell you about it for sure. Alrighty, let's talk about knitting. What am I wearing? That is my one finished object for today, is this lovely top that I was knitting, I think at least the last episode, if not the episode before. This is the Everyday Attitude by Suzanne Sommer, also known as Sosu Knits. I showed it to you last time and I knit furiously on it and have finally finished it. So let me tell you a little bit about the top before I tell you about the yarns. This is knit top down. It is striped, it is garter, and it is started at the top where you build the shoulder and you create this really amazing chevron detail. And then you finish the back. And there is it's a very interestingly constructed top. I don't want to tell you everything about it, but then you do the shaping here, you do some sleeve shaping as well, and then you join and you finish, and then you get down here and you join. And then you go down, and unfortunately what ends up happening, this is the one, probably my main criticism about this sweater, is that then you're knitting garter in the round, which means that you're purling every row. And on 3mm needles, at times it did feel like a little bit of a slog. But I've been watching lovely things on TV and I just like, okay, well, whatever. And eventually, suddenly, I finished the top and I actually wonder if it's just a tiny bit too long. But yeah, anyway. So once you join in the round, you end up doing this very interesting slip stitch detail here, which I really like. And one thing I'm noticing, and you can see it here, is that I've been wearing this. I've worn this probably 4 or 5 times, and I'm realizing it needs to get into the wash. And that's a function of the summer, the sort of more plant-based fibers in the yarns that I used. Not only the plant-based, but the silk, I think, and the cotton merino seems to hold up better, but I think the silk has a bit more of a droopy effect. But anyway, so it's got this interesting slip stitch detail here to create the side. And it's really quite lovely. I don't quite know why I have these couple of stripes where clearly somehow I ended up knitting more loosely or something. I don't know what happened. But anyway, it is what it is. There's another one here that's a little bit like that too. I think the one thing I'd have to say is that the top will naturally shift from being over here to being over here. It's kind of a natural thing that happens to it. And so what happens is the back ends up being longer. And an interesting effect of this slip stitch detail is that because it's quite tight, it stays stiff where the rest of the sweater might slump a little bit. Now, I have to say that would not stop me from making this top again, but I have wondered if rather than putting a slip stitch detail, one could do sort of like a color work instead, like a checkered look, because it's there to carry the yarns and also to hide the sort of the switching of rows so that you don't get a jog. So the detail is really interesting and it serves an interesting function, but it's quite tight, even though I tried to make it as loose as possible. And so I think what can happen is that the front and the back of the sweater can sag a tiny bit. And then the last detail I want to talk about is this, oops, there's a thread there, is this double knit detail here, which I actually really, really like. And then you just finish these with a little bit of stockinette stitch, and it rolls and it just creates this little detail. So really lovely. I used leftovers from my 2 previous sweaters, the white anchor sweater that you saw last time and the blue spring line tee that you saw the time before. So the blue is the pure silk, which definitely has more of a tendency to stretch. And I do want to tell you about that because I had said I was quite disappointed because I felt like my spring line tee had stretched too much. I originally had washed it by hand, put it in the drain and spin cycle and hung it out, which is what I do with the majority of my sweaters when I wash them. The next time I washed it, I just put it in the gentle cycle. I've got a front loading machine. And I have to say the results were quite different. And I think from now on, I'll probably wash it in the gentle cycle because when I did it by hand and I put it in the drain and spin, it definitely really relaxed the top. Whereas when I put it into the gentle cycle, it sort of brought it back to much closer to its original size, sort of pre-blocking, so to speak. So it was kind of interesting. And I've only worn it once since then, so I can't say if it's going to relax a little bit more, but it probably will. And I would imagine, I found that with cotton sweaters, for example, in the summer, they do have a tendency to stretch a little bit, so you have to wash them more often. I don't wash my woolly sweaters very often at all, maybe once a season unless something happens. But I do find that I tend to wash my summer sweaters a little bit more because they stretch and because you're more sweaty and so forth, so they kind of need it a bit more. So the blue is the silk and the white is the knitting for olive as well, and cotton merino, and the blue is the dusty dove blue or the dove blue, and the white is the cream. I think they called it originally natural cream, but I think now it's just called cream. And they created just this very, very lovely sort of nautical looking striped t-shirt. And I have been wearing this a lot because it's just an easy t-shirt. I've been wearing it with jeans. It's been really, really lovely. And although I say that there are some details, like the back ends up being a little longer, that doesn't really bother me. I have thought that it's a little long. I might go back and shorten it, but I've decided I'm just gonna wear it the way it is now, and I'll figure that out later. I would definitely knit this top again, because despite the back and forth nature here, it really does create a lovely, lovely shape. And I think it would be lovely in other colors. I think originally I had been thinking about a light pink and a bright pink, and that could be lovely as well. People have made it in black and white. There could be lots of combinations that would be lovely in it. So, The Everyday Attitude by Suzanne Sommer. And normally, I have to say, I can tell that it's slumping a bit, and so it's kind of showing my bra, whereas after I had washed it and worn it, it wasn't doing that. But now I feel like it's getting to the point where I'm like, yep, it's got to go into the wash. My Afra sweater, which I made out of cotton cashmere by Katia, I find that it needs that too, and so does my Tolsta, that they just have a tendency just to stretch a tiny bit. And then I put them in the gentle cycle and they come out just right. And so I wear them and then I have to wash them more often. So there you go. Let me make sure that I have said everything I wanted to say. Yeah, no, I have. And it's really just a lovely t-shirt. Really pretty and simple and just nice to wear. And yeah, really lovely. It could be neat to make it again and turn it into a V-neck. Actually, that's got me thinking now. All right, so that's it for finished objects. The next, I have some works in progress. And I guess the first thing I'll talk to you about is the wedding socks that I have been knitting on. Oops, I forgot the blocker upstairs. Oh well. I have one sock. So I'm really going to be focusing on these over the next couple of weeks because I would like to finish the bride's pair and then move on to the groom's. The wedding is in, I think it's on the 20th of July, so I've got plenty of time, but I don't want to leave it and then find myself feeling stressed out about it. But they look really long, but they really shorten a lot when they are on the blockers and stretched out, because they've got a cable detail which kind of cinches it in. Now let me see. There we go. So basic sock pattern, a top cuff down. I think I did about 20 rows of ribbing. There's 64 stitches, and I did sort of a 4x2 ribbing, and then every second stitch stockinette ribbing section has cables. So these are being knit using this Regia tweed, 4-ply tweed in this blue and in this color 70 and color 52. So I have started the second sock. I'm actually on the heel of the second sock. And yeah. Okay, now I've got to talk to you about what I wanted to talk to you about before. I got a new phone. This is June, it's also my birthday month, and I decided that it was time to get a new phone. My other phone was starting to really struggle with space, and updates were becoming really difficult and so forth, so I thought it's time to get a new phone. And also a family member wanted a second phone, and I thought you can have this one, and you know, I'll get a new one. So this phone has a cinematic video, which is what I'm trying today. And this is where, you know, the background is out of focus and whatever is here is in focus. And now I'm seeing what other podcasters sometimes struggle with, where they're trying to get something to focus and it takes a little while. So yeah, my first time trying it out. I'm curious to see how I like it. I'll figure that out, I guess, when I'm editing. If you have very strong opinions about it, I'm totally happy to hear about it. But yeah, I'm going to see how I like. I love the fact that the background is a little bit out of focus, but you know, I also don't want to spend my time saying, is it in focus? Is it in focus? Is it in focus? So anyway, so this is just a quick show of these lovely socks that I'm making. Hopefully they'll be lovely, and they'll be part of the wedding gift for my friend's daughter and soon-to-be son-in-law. I think I showed you, did I show this to you last time I was on here? My ranunculus? I think I did. So this ranunculus is being held in a bag by Buku, which I've had for many, many years. This is a really sort of thick waxed canvas bag. It's great, and I am making ranunculus number 10, I counted. Now I found out, I met somebody the other day who had made something like 26. So I don't feel like I'm that crazy. Now 2 of them have been for other people, one for a friend and one for my mother-in-law. But I was telling you that I wanted to make a replacement for my gray ranunculus because I just feel like it's starting to show wear. You know, I still wear it all the time because I truly love it, but I wanted another very light and airy ranunculus that could be used on a cool evening in the summer, but also as a lighter layering piece in cooler weather. And so I've settled on these yarns. This one is the Tunline by Sadness Garn, and this is a I don't know about this. This is a cotton linen viscose blend, and I'm holding it together with this very pale peach by Biche et Bûche in their mohair silk blend. And it's just interesting because I don't know if you can see the colors there. This is looking more beige. In real life, this has a real grayness to it. And when I tried to pair it with a gray mohair, it looked very cold. And when we put this beside it, it just seemed to really work. So I decided to try it, and it has really created a lovely color, which has a tiny, tiny little bit of a blush to it. And it's just really quite lovely. Just a lovely sort of neutral beige kind of color. It has a tiny, tiny hint of mauve to it. And I'm looking forward to having this done. So I really focused on knitting this, and when I finished this, I finished off the yoke of this thing, and I'm just going down the body. So my knits are competing a little bit with sewing these days, and gardening and other things. So I'm not getting through things super quickly, but that's okay. I will finish this. I don't know, can you see the pinkiness to it? It's kind of interesting. That's really quite lovely. And I would never have thought that adding that pale peach color would be good. I was a little bit, what's the word? Skeptical of whether it was going to work, but I actually really, really like it. And it just, there's a grayness to this color that the other one just softens, and yeah, so I'm really enjoying this, looking forward to having it. It'll be a lovely, lovely early fall knit as well. So yeah, looking forward to that. And then my last work in progress is in a bag that I made eons ago. It won't stay in here because it'll eventually grow, but it's actually just the very beginnings, and I have not worked more on this because I thought, okay, I'm going to finish this, I'm going to finish the ranunculus, and then I'm going to give this attention. And this is a cardigan that has lichen all over it because I was knitting on it while I was camping. This is a cardigan that I'm making out of these two yarns. So this is again the Tunelina. This is in color 4234, and this is the Isager mohair silk, and this is the color 28. I think it's called coral. I can't remember exactly. And these two are going together, and these two are going together. And I've only gotten through the first couple of rows. And I sort of did the setup rows, and next begins the real magic of this cardigan. This is the Mariposa Cardigan by Helga Isser. It is from this edition of Making Magazine. It was number 7. And it is this cardigan here. This is a really statement piece kind of cardigan. It's got this bell detail here, which requires a lot of casting on of stitches and then slowly diminishing them. It's a really interesting technique. It's a drop shoulder construction. I do find the sleeves a little bit too long, so I will probably be making them shorter than they are here. But I'm really excited about this, and a little bit nervous about, but I think it's not difficult. I've been reading the instructions, but at first I was like, oh, what's this going to be like? So I'm curious to see, is this going to be potato chippy, or is it going to be something that requires attention? Once I finish the ranunculus, which you'll probably see next time, I'll get onto that and I'll let you know. The other thing I did, because, let me show you my quilt. This is still a work in progress. The only thing I have done since I last spoke to you is tied the quilt, and I have cut the binding. So maybe tonight, if I have time, I will sew the binding together, the pieces together, and if I really have time, then I will actually cut the quilt, like trim all the bits off, and sew the one side of the binding at least. But doesn't really look any different from last time, except that now we have this fabric detail on the back. And we've got little ties, which are on each section. So yeah, so that's another work in progress. And I work on that here and there. The tying of the quilt actually took far longer than I thought it would. I was a little surprised. I probably spent 3 evenings on it, not full evenings, but sometime over 3 evenings, and I got it done. And I used a light blue sashiko thread that I have, and I sort of doubled it, went through twice, and then tied 2 knots, and hopefully that'll be good. I'm drinking a cup of coffee today, which is unusual for me. It's decaf, but today I just felt like having coffee for some reason, and I'm drinking it out of this lovely mug that Tori in New Mexico, when I was there in October, gifted me, and I really, really love this mug. It's a very nice size. It's really nice to hold. It's got a lovely handle, so I'm really enjoying that, and it reminds me of my trip to New Mexico every time. I will be going again for Labor Day weekend. That's when the next retreat starts, and I'm really looking forward to that. I'm also going to be going to Rhinebeck this year. Mega, Mel, and I decided this week that we were going to go to Rhinebeck. I suddenly just was like, I really want to go to Rhinebeck. I haven't been there since I think 2018, which is, 6 years. It'll be 6 years, and I haven't really had a desire to go. And then suddenly I was like, I really want to go to Rhinebeck. I haven't been there in a while. So we booked an Airbnb this week. There weren't many in a decent price range available. Some were only taken for the Saturday night. So even though we wanted to be there for 3 nights, so we did find an Airbnb, and I'm very excited about this. Very excited. So that's in October. I'm going to have some lovely plans for the fall. Anyway, those are my works in progress. Let's move on to what is next. I have talked to you a lot about knitting a mesh top, and I'm really no further along in my exploration. I have done just a very, very mini start of a swatch with this beautiful yarn by Akara. This is her silk linen base. Unfortunately, Rose seems to not be dyeing yarn anymore. Saw her at Knit City Toronto, and she's focusing on spinning. I don't know if she has yarn on her website anymore, but this was the Puto Bumbang. I can always struggle with that name for some reason. Puto Bumbang colorway, which is just beautiful. And I thought about maybe making a mesh top with this. I had originally thought about making the Wild Flowers by Tiff Nealon, but I started thinking about maybe a mesh top. So I do really want to make a mesh top this summer. Let's see what happens. I also really like the Look at My Holes by James M. Watts. Every time I see somebody's version, I think that's really nice. So maybe I'll just make that. That could be fun. Anyway, hopefully you'll see a mesh top from me this summer. I would really like to have one, thank you very much, but let's see what happens. The other thing that's going to happen, as I mentioned, it is my birthday month. And on my birthday, which is June 28th, I will be casting on a sweater. And in an unusual color combination for me. This will be a fall sweater with this kind of a color. And I'm going to be making the Pink Velvet by Andrea Mowry. I've had the pattern for like 3 years. I've had the yarn for 2 years. So it's going to happen. The Surrey alpaca, which is used for the color work. Isn't that beautiful? Look at that. This is by Emilia et Philomène in the Clémence base, which is 74% Surrey alpaca and 26% silk. There are 300 yards in here, which should be enough. And the second one is this really beautiful sort of pinkish rust by Life in the Long Grass. And this is also 350 meters. It is their hinterland base at 75% Blueface Leicester and 25% Gotland. So it's got a beautiful sort of hairiness to it. And it's really beautiful. So that's another what's up next. And then one of my challenges for June was to finish the quilt and to knit a garment. So I think I have chosen a skirt pattern to make. It's by Tessuti, and it is called the Elastic Waist Skirt. It's a free tutorial on the Tessuti site. Tessuti is an Australian fabric and pattern site. So somebody, actually Beatrice, who's a woman who works at Fabrications, she mentioned it to me because I was talking about wanting to make a skirt, and she said it's a great pattern and it's got an elasticated waist. And so I thought, okay, I'm up for the challenge. I just have so many sort of mental hurdles when it comes to sewing, but I'm all about getting over those. So last year I bought this beautiful modal rayon fabric from Fabrications, which is like two blues and this kind of stone pattern on it. And that is going to become a skirt. I'm going to see, I did buy some very thin cotton to create a lining for it underneath. We'll see if I need it. There's a lot of fabric on the skirt, so it might be enough, because I thought maybe this is a little bit transparent, but it's not a lot. I don't think so. I think it's okay. I think it's going to be all right. So I might not use that fabric, but so that is my next goal. I have washed the fabric. I need to iron it now, and then I need to get going on that. So I'm hoping to finish up the binding, at least sew on the one side, and then I'm going to my friend's cottage next week, and I think I'm going to hand sew the back part of the binding to the quilt, and I'll do that over that weekend, and then I will start the skirt. So hopefully before the end of the month I'll have the skirt. I do have a lot going on this month, so let's see. But that's another what's up next. So let's see what's up actually next. Let's see. All right, so that is kind of the end of the knitting content. I did have a question, and I wanted to talk about the Podiversary, and I haven't done in a long time. I haven't done sort of like some favorites, some good things that have been going on, so I thought I would share a little bit about that. So I had a question, somebody asking me about how I go about deciding on my challenges of the month. So I thought that was an interesting question that I wanted to answer on the podcast. So I decided this, I think, at the end of the year. I thought, I love the concept of having a word of the year, but if for some reason, and I love the concept of having a resolution, but as we all know, it's really hard to keep a resolution for an entire year. And even the word of the year, sometimes I choose a word of the year and partway through the year, it doesn't sit anymore. So that's where I thought maybe what I should do is challenges monthly. And I could be one challenge, it could be 3 challenges. And what I did was I made a list of all kinds of things, like, and some are more personal. I haven't actually mentioned all of my challenges to you guys, because some of them are a little bit more personal and not necessarily something that I would share. But I made a list. I mean, the list included things like walking every day, drawing every day, journaling every day, doing a gratitude journal, eating no sugar, no alcohol. And I actually ended up doing no alcohol for Lent, which was wonderful. And I wasn't much of a drinker to begin with, but I'm really drinking even less now. Yeah, there was just all kinds of things. Doing yoga every day, taking a picture every day. And I bought actually a little printer, so I'd like to do that at one point. There was just like, I just put on things there that I thought would be good for me or would feed me or nourish me in some way. And some of them, like, doing some sort of physical activity every day or eating a certain way are all good things. I did the vegetarianism, and that was a really interesting exploration for me, and got me thinking about what works well for me optimally in terms of a diet. It got me thinking a lot more philosophically about our food systems, especially in North America, and doing the strength training one month was really, really great. So I just wrote things down, and as the next month is approaching, I think, okay, what challenge do I need? 1 month it was flossing, you may recall, which was great. And that was one of them. It wasn't all of them. So I'll just think sort of like what would be good for me that month. I also have to think a little bit about timing, because sometimes, it's not the right time to do that thing. 1 month was reading every day, and I might repeat some of these challenges. I really cannot seem to get reading into my routine, and I really want to, and I really enjoyed reading that month. So that might end up being a challenge sometime in the near future. So that's essentially it. And as the month approaches, I think about it. This month, my challenges were less daily challenges, as they were like project challenges: washing the carpets, finishing the quilt, sewing a garment. And then next month, I suspect that I'll be back to, I would like to get reading back in there, and I'll see what else. I've been walking. Last month's challenge was to walk every day, and as a result of that, I'm back to walking, which I really love. I love getting up in the morning before, if I'm going to the office, walking is part of my commuting because I take public transportation. But if I'm not going into the office, I just love waking up in the morning and going out for a half an hour walk, coming back and starting my day. And it's just wonderful. So yeah, so there you go. A little bit about the challenges. Thank you for that question. Right, next thing I wanted to do is talk about the Podiversary. I can't believe that it's been 7 years since I started this podcast. It is such a part of my life. I cannot imagine not doing it. I really, really, really love it. Now, I have to say that it does take up a lot of my time on a Saturday. I have to prepare, which is not too much. I mean, a lot of the preparation is really happening in my head and jotting down notes. I record, try to keep my family away. And then I upload the videos onto my my computer, and I start editing. And then I have to save that, and then I have to upload that, do the notes for the show notes in there, and do all the links and that kind of thing. And then I usually announce it on Instagram at some point. And I'm getting really bad at putting it into Ravelry. But editing takes, probably a good double the time, probably a little bit more than that, probably closer to triple the time of the time I spend talking. So it does take up a chunk of my weekend. So it's definitely not something that I could do every week. I would stop enjoying it very quickly. But I do enjoy doing it, about once a month, every 3 weeks or so. And it's become such a part of my life. And I'm so amazed at the impact that it has had on my life, and just the community that it's created. And certainly in the make-alongs, I know that people have, gotten to know each other, and I've met people as a result of this podcast, and have a community of friends as a result of it, that has really enriched my life. And all the while talking about something that I am so incredibly passionate about. So that's really, it's just been such a wonderful gift to my life, and having you there with your wonderful comments and your continued support of the podcast. It's been a fabulous experience for me. And I hope that I've been able to contribute to the knitting community in some way through the podcast. So yeah, it's been really a wonderful ride. And at this time, I don't see an end in sight, but I suppose one day I'll have to stop. But for now, I'm just really enjoying it. So I did want to announce I'm afraid to say the words, and I'm just going to put it out there. We know that there are bots because I have some PRIZEEESs over there for a GIVE AWAY. I have prizes for a giveaway. And so if anybody down below, when you make a comment, says you've won something or whatever, that is not me, okay? Because I will only announce the winners in the next episode. So please, if you get a bot down below that's pretending to be me, that is telling you you've won something, please report it to YouTube. That's the best thing to do. So just want to put that out there, because I think they've been quiet lately, but just in case they show up again. So I have 4 prizes here. Whoopsies. Okay. So there will be 4 winners of one of these prizes. So the first one, which is the easiest one for me to talk about right now, is these 2 skeins of Spud and Chloe Fine. This was a lovely donation by Rosalind, so thank you very much for that, Rosalind. This is a 80% wool and 20% silk in this wonderful sort of turquoise color. So that would be one prize that will come with a couple of little goodies. The other one is this skein of Universal Yarn Bamboo Pop Sock. Which is this purple and gray sock that has bamboo in it. So this is actually do they say it anywhere? They must. This is a 55% bamboo, 37% cotton, and 8% PBT. So this would be for a summer pair of socks. I suppose somebody could make something else with it too. Then we have the complete opposite, very woolly sock by Alley Cat Yarns. It's coming up a little bit more red on screen than it actually is. It's kind of more, kind of more of a cherry red. And this is by Alley Cat Yarns, it's called Fuchsia, and this is the Ontario sock. I have a skein of this and I'm really itching to make it. So I'm waiting to get through all the socks that I promised I would make this year, and then I want to make myself a pair of socks in this. This is her Ontario sock, and it's 80% Dorset and Dorset Cheviot and 20% mohair. It's tightly spun, and the mohair should give it strength as well. But it's a very robust, wonderful feeling sock yarn, and I'm really looking forward to trying that at one point. And then there's also this amazing sweater quantity here that you can see is actually a dark brown. That one looks black on that side, but they're sort of slightly tonal, kind of black and brown. Also by Alley Cat Yarns, and this is her smooth sock base, which is 85% superwash merino and 15% nylon, and this is the Darch colorway. This was one of the yarns that she sent to me after I'd lost that yarn, which was just so incredibly generous. Melissa is very generous. just love her and really, really enjoy her yarns and her explorations of yarn bases and colors. So this is another prize. So there are 4 prizes. What I would love for you to do is any comment below will be entered unless you tell me to not enter you. But please feel free to make a comment below. You can comment on anything on the podcast, but if you would like to have a question to answer, that would be perhaps something like, what have you enjoyed about this podcast? Especially if you've been around for a while, or if there's anything in particular that you'd like to see. So yeah, that's the question. And I'll announce the winners next time. So there you go, 7 years on. And there are some of you that have watched me for 7 years, and I thank you. Thank you for being here and for loyally coming in every time. I really, really appreciate it. Yeah, and the community just keeps growing. We're almost at 25,000, which is really exciting. And we're gonna 7 years, 25,000, and 100 episodes, all happening in a short frame of time. So there you go. All right, let's end the podcast with a few things that have been sort of bringing me joy and what's going on recently. So let's talk about a few things first. First, podcast corner. I had heard about Becky for some time because of Casey from YoungfolkKnits, but I hadn't actually watched her podcast. So a few episodes ago, I finally watched an episode of A Hand Knit Letter with Becky and really enjoyed it. And so I thought I wanted to share it. Becky's got a really funny sense of humor. And it was just light and fun, and she's very inspired by art in her making, and I really appreciated that. Looking at works by Vincent van Gogh and others, and so it was just I really enjoyed it. So I wanted to give Becky a mention, and I realized last time that she had watched my podcast. So hello, Becky, if you happen to be there. So that's what I had for you for Podcast Corner today. On screen, I have been watching as I tie the quilt and as I knit on my striped top, 2 shows recently. I'm kind of late to the party on these shows. One of them is on Prime, and it's called The Marvellous Mrs Maisel. And I've really been enjoying that, actually. It's really fun. It's light. It's very entertaining. So I've really been enjoying that. I'm on season 3 at this point, and I'm looking forward to watching the entire thing. I end up watching about 1 episode a night here and there, but I've also been watching Stranger Things. And we're sort of watching that in the house together, and that's been really, really fun. First I was like, I don't know if I want to watch this. Am I going to be scared? I don't deal with creepiness very well, especially before going to bed. It just sets me in a certain level of vibration that then I can't fall asleep. So I was assured that it would not be too bad, and I don't think I would want to watch it right before going to bed, but we usually end up watching it around 7 o'clock, and that's fine. And then I watch an episode of Mrs. Maisel. But it is really, really fun, I have to say. I am so enjoying the 80s aspect of it. At the end of season 2, there is a school dance, and it just brought me back, like the music and everything. It was just great. So I really enjoyed that. I think they've recreated the 80s incredibly well. And it also reminds me of that movie Stand By Me, which I think was a Spielberg movie years ago with River Phoenix and Kiefer Sutherland, and I can't remember the other actors' names, about the 3 boys who are on an adventure looking for the body of a child who has died. And there are, especially in the first season, I felt like the show was very inspired by that movie, and maybe Goonies as well. So anyway, I've really enjoyed that as well. So those are two things to mention from on the screen. And then I've been listening to a lot of music lately, and one album that dropped 3 months ago or so perhaps was, or maybe more, I don't know, but it was Hozier's new album. Hozier is known for that song, Take Me to Church, which is actually, I think, one of the best songs in the last 10 years. I think it came out about 10 years ago, and I just love that song, and love what it's saying as well. And he came out with an album recently called, what was it called? Unreal Unearth. And it's a mix of folk and soul, and I've been enjoying that. And then I also rediscovered an album that I have the CD of, that came out in the 90s, and it's by a group, definitely a more unknown indie group called Rachel's. And it's a sort of, I would say, alternative classical, modern classical. They came out of somewhere in the States. I can't remember exactly where, but it's just beautiful music. It's lovely for a quiet day, for example. There are cellos and violins and piano in it. It's just beautiful. And the album that I've been listening to, although I have two of the CDs, but the one that I've been listening to is called Music for Egon Shiele. Egon Shiele was an Austrian artist, and whose work I also really, really like. So I remember picking up that CD in the 90s at a shop where there was somebody who was really great at recommending music, and you could listen to the music and decide if you wanted to buy the CD. And I remember buying that CD at that time and listening to it a lot. We don't have a CD player set up at this time, and I'm kind of trying to figure out, what do I do with all of my CDs? Because I don't know. I've always loved my CDs, but now I'm like, it doesn't make sense to keep them. There's a lot of them. So yeah, not sure what I'm going to do there, but I've been listening to that on iTunes Music and really enjoying it. So just wanted to mention those two things. In terms of what's been going on, as I mentioned, I had some lichen on my knits. Can you see that? Stupid thing. Yeah, that's going to drive me crazy. Anyway, I went camping the weekend of June 1st at a new place that I had never been to with my friend. It was her birthday, so she and her boyfriend invited us to go camping with them, and it was just beautiful. We had a fabulous, fabulous weekend, and I got crazy amount of deer fly bites. That was the only thing. But I went swimming on May 31st and June 1st. I think that's the earliest I have ever swum. The lake we were at is, I think it might be a little bit of a shallow lake, so it was probably warms up a little bit earlier than other lakes, but it was amazing. It wasn't even particularly difficult to get into the water. So that was really fun. I mentioned to you that I got a new phone. We've been doing a lot of gardening in our allotment garden, which is not here because we don't really have enough sun at this point, but we have an allotment garden, and this year, for the first time, we ate our asparagus. So that was like the highlight of the spring for me, is eating our own asparagus. We put this asparagus in the soil 3 summers ago. We were told to wait 2 full summers before we harvested. So we harvested for the first time this year, and that was really, really great. I don't have any pictures of that, but I'll put in some video here. You can see that our gooseberries are looking fabulous. Our black currants are looking really, really great. And also, for the first time, we had 2 Haskap berries. Haskap berry is from the blueberry family, so you have to have 2 plants. When you have blueberries, there have to be at least 2 plants. And we had more, but I think there's a little somebody who there's a little vole that we struggle with in our garden plot. And so I suspect he ate the other hascap berries, but we did get 2. So I had 1 and Alejandro had 1. And I'm just really glad because I planted them last year and I wondered, how is this going to work out? So that was really exciting as well. And I also discovered that there is a mulberry tree near our garden plot, which I think I hadn't noticed it before, or certainly hadn't noticed that it was bearing fruit. And so I'm wondering, it's in a sort of common area, so I might not get to have any of the mulberries and if I'm not there fast enough. But that was really exciting as well. So the garden plot is doing quite well. We know that we have to plant things that the vole won't like as much. But turns out he likes hascap berries. But that has taken up time, as well as our backyard. Our backyard has become a disaster over the last few years. We've really just let it go. We've just been so incredibly busy and really struggled to have a vision for our backyard. At one point it looked great, but we just can't grow grass. So eventually the grass just turns into weeds, and it's been a challenge to figure out what to do with it. So we actually had somebody come and we did a consultation with them and we got lots of ideas. So we're going to be slowly working on improving the backyard. A friend of mine is going to be leaving the country for a while and decided that she didn't want to rent out her apartment. And so we said, hey, we'll take it. So we're going to have a second apartment as sort of a swing space for us. And I've been kind of thinking about turning it into a little bit of a studio for myself and taking my sewing stuff there. And we thought it's a great place for us or for our kids. Sometimes I think we feel like, we need some space, and that would be a great way to have it, and just time for ourselves. So we're going to have that, and I'm just trying to figure out what am I going to do in terms of my making. Do I want to dedicate a space of the apartment and bring my sewing machine and all my sewing stuff and go there a couple of nights a week and just have time, the space, because I don't have a lot of space to sew, and sometimes that's really frustrating and it slows me down. Things that if I had space I would just go and do them. I feel like I need to move things out of the way and stuff, and I thought this might be a really nice solution. So also needing to fit up the apartment a bit, because although she's leaving behind all her furniture, kitchenware, sheets, towels, bathroom things, those things will be gone. So slowly sort of collecting things as well to make sure that we've got enough for some cooking there and, obviously shower stuff and bedding and so forth. So that's kind of a little exciting sort of exploration that we're going to do. And yeah, that's about it. I'm going to be heading to my friend's cottage, our yearly trip, a little early this year. We're going next weekend and I'll be there for 4 nights. We're not sure we've ever spent 4 nights there. We've always spent about 3. So this is exciting. And then the week after that, I'll be going to a cottage for a week. So summer is wonderful, but it is busy. And there's just always a lot going on. But you will see me at some point in July, probably 2nd or 3rd week of July. I'll come in and I'll say hello and I'll announce the winners then. So in the meantime, I hope you keep well. I hope you're taking care of yourself, enjoying your making. If you're in the Southern Hemisphere, enjoying the warmer weather. And in the Northern Hemisphere, I hope you're enjoying the cooler evenings to sit down perhaps and do a little bit of crafting. I'll see you next time. I'm going to leave you with a little bit of footage from our camping trip, and we'll see you next time. Take care, friends.